Hey guys, if you have not already, go hit subscribe and you can get our videos each week. This is a live recording of our podcast.
Okay, guys, question for you. What's one thing that can help me deal with conflict and triggers?
Okay, so I got a review here. It says, a friend heard Ashlyn as a guest speaker on a different podcast, and she said I needed to track her down and follow her. I did and found this podcast. It was just what I needed when I needed it. The betrayal was new and I was drowning. All the real life examples I had or heard of were of people separating, and I felt like there was no hope in surviving this. I desperately was seeking hope and examples of people that saved and thrived. Your podcast has expedited my recovery 100%. Although I was doing the best I could on my own, I was triggered all the time in a constant fear cycle, trying to control what I couldn't control because I wanted safety so badly, and I was drowning. Not only have I gotten hope from your podcast, but I've also received tools to help me manage myself. Like Ashlyn always says, get curious. I've done just that. I'm still learning and still have lots to work on, but I have hope and I have you guys to listen to. Thank you for putting this content out there. It has truly been a blessing in my life.
Man, that is so awesome.
It's a generous review.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And ironically, we're going to talk about getting curious today.
Yeah, what do you know? There's the topic right there.
Yeah.
And that's one of our latest reviews. We didn't really plan that
we're
too
on
much.
the same page. I love it.
The power of curiosity is incredible.
Yeah, Ashlyn, you've been on the roll this year so far with being curious. Why don't you speak to that and what that's been like for you?
Well, it is this year more than anything, but I think it was more, yes, we did, to get into recovery, we did have to okay, I'm going to stay in my own lane. I'm going to work on me, what I can control. We're not necessarily working on recovery skills and battling that thing right now. We're working on life right now. And for me to still step into, why am I showing up this way? What am I feeling? Yeah. And to really use curiosity as a tool in my toolkit has been a big win for me this year.
Right.
And just to, I guess, have it show up in different areas and roles that I play in life.
Well, think about curiosity. I love that, Ashley. It opens up possibility. So in your brain, if you're in a fixed mindset, so if you just think things should be this way no matter what, and it's black and white, either it's this way or that way, and it needs to happen that way, then your limbic system or your midbrain is firing off saying, ugh, like I have emotion around this thing because it shouldn't be this way or shouldn't be that way, which then fires off more thoughts about the way things should or shouldn't be.
Narratives start going crazy.
Nuts, and then more emotions come, more thoughts come, and you're caught up in this chaos or this crisis, whereas if you stop for a minute and you get curious, you're actually operating from a different part of your brain. You're up in your frontal lobe, and you're thinking through why are things the way they are, or what's really going on here, and you're in an exploratory mode. You're not in a fixed mindset mode. So you're processing the inputs around you, but you're exploring that rather than just reacting to it.
Yeah. How it shows up for me when I'm not being curious is those things I'm living in my head. Number one, I'm feeling a lot of emotion, holding it in, not really saying anything about it. The narratives are repeating, broken record.
So when you're living in your head, you're not living from your heart or your gut, right? You're not really feeling what's going on. Yeah.
Another way it can show up for me is I'm gonna go tell someone all these really hard things that are happening so that they can validate that, everything's so hard.
Right. So you can feed that narrative.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Right, I have no role in any of this.
Yes, no accountability, right?
Yes.
No power.
Yes. So,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, Saturday, Kobe and I were talking about this on the way up to the podcast today. On Saturday, I'm going to be really open here. Hormones played a role in how I felt.
What do you mean? That never happens.
I'm a woman.
Yes.
And so emotions were through the roof for me. And I'm not like yelling, I'm not screaming,
They're just there.
they're just there. And everything felt really big.
Yeah.
And everything Kobe did was super annoying.
Driving you nuts, right?
And I was like, I hate people, so now what?
Mhm.
So that I can sit in that, right? And I think I did for like half the day, where I was just like, oh my gosh, like all these feelings I'm having, and just like, I look at him and I'm annoyed. And I went upstairs and I took out my journal
Mhm.
and I just got curious. Like, what does this actually look like on paper? Get it out of my head.
Right. That's a great tool to get curious, is to write it out and see it on paper, because when it's all inside of you, it's just circulating and
Yeah.
causing more and more chaos.
Yeah.
So what was the result?
I'm awesome.
And I'm not a douche anymore.
Yeah, you're not so bad.
He had to get
I'm
to
not
that,
so bad.
He had to get to that point.
Well, of course we did. That's the end of the story.
Well, it also, it allowed, like, sitting down and slowing my roll allowed me to, like, what's playing into how I'm feeling?
Yeah.
Hormones. Hello, wake up, Ashlyn. Like,
Right.
it's okay that you're feeling all these things, but you need to accept and get curious of why all these things are happening right now. So it allowed me to feel it, to accept it, but then also to kind of release that and realize it's not so bad. Like, you're only seeing like this
When
much.
you got curious, you actually regulated your emotions down, and you weren't in as much chaos. So, I mean, curiosity works to regulate your emotions, even when you're hormonal, right?
Yeah.
But it works for other things too. It works for stepping into conflict with your partner. It works for regulating or changing your behaviors around trigger and not acting out. It's a relapse prevention tool to get curious. It's a powerful thing to be a curious person. So, Kobe, do you use it?
I used it this weekend when I saw Ashlyn being really
You had plenty of opportunities.
emotional. Yeah. Which is really funny because
we're both being curious,
this
like,
is-
what's
I
wrong
know,
with
this
that?
What is going on?
this is part 2 of the conversation we had en route to the podcast. Here's what's cool about what happened over the weekend is I knew that you were going to start your cycle, that hormones were starting, and once I was like observing the nonverbals, once I was listening to the tone, and then I started thinking, okay, where are we in the month? And I'm like, oh, okay. What the curiosity really did was allowed me to not take anything that was either said or alluded to or any of the things personally. It was like I can attach this weekend and the emotions that I observed to the fact that hormones are playing a role, and I was like, I'm totally okay with that. And historically,
Yeah, that's a
when
very
you were
different.
mean, or when you were hormonal or whatever, I would legit like take the HOV lane to Victimsville.
Yeah.
And I was mayor, and I was like, I own that place.
So
Okay.
notice how your curiosity makes it so you don't take her personally.
Yes.
Right, what she's doing.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is not a. That's not a Kobe. That's historically not a norm for me. But it allowed me to do that. It allowed me to attribute those things appropriately, but it also allowed me to be more of a duck and let things just slide off my back and realize that this is just.
And I think it's important to
It's okay.
note he wasn't like, oh, I can see that you're hormonal.
Oh, I
it
wasn't
that.
gaslighting
he
you.
really just like took gave me a break.
That's not curiosity.
Yeah.
Going to you and being like, I know what's going on, and you're hormonal. No, curiosity is what is going on.
Yeah.
Like, it's taking that step back and really trying to observe and understand what's going on inside of you, as well as with the people around you.
Because historically, I would have interpreted that behavior with, okay, I did something wrong, I did something she doesn't like, so maybe she doesn't like me, she's probably rejecting me, and I'm no good. All of which was just this, recurring journal that existed in my life always. And none of that was true, but that question, that whole experience was really, really important for me, just to observe, and so that I could stay present.
Yeah.
so that I could exist and not be, and not pick up stones. That's
Okay,
it.
so one of the first things to do is to observe. One of the second things to do is to fact check.
Mhm.
So you're observing, and then you're really getting clear with what really is going on. You did that in your journal,
Yeah.
Ashlyn. It sounds like you were going through that process in your head.
Correct.
With Ashlyn.
Correct.
Right. So okay, you observe, you fact check, and then what?
Well, so a fact check, but let's drill down on that a layer or two. I think what I did is I was able to identify specific situations or environmental factors that were maybe the cause of the strife, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Okay.
And once I was able to be curious about those things, then it was like, okay, so identifying, so it was observing, and then fact checking, but also like seeing what else could be a factor in the equation that led to a rough weekend,
Nice.
and that was really, really helpful for me.
So I'm going to say this, and I don't know if it's going to make sense. So, and I don't know if I can explain it. So
Okay.
Come on, legend, the pressure's on now.
Well, it's not about even finding the answers. So you can get curious, and you can fact check, and you can figure this stuff out. You can realize, oh, Ashlyn might be a little bit hormonal, and but really the beauty of it is you're going to get the positive benefits just by being curious. It's not necessarily getting those facts. You've regulated your emotions.
Mhm.
You're not amping yourself up and going crazy, because in your brain you're asking questions.
Mhm.
You're being mindful, and you're being present, and so you'll get those answers like, oh,
Mhm.
this is what's actually going on. But that's the beauty of it, is now you're not in a rage of anger or on the HOV lane to Victimsville, right?
Yeah.
Because you got curious. The same thing exists with triggers. We could take betrayal trauma trigger or an addiction trigger or whatever. Let's take a betrayal trauma trigger. You're freaking out because you just like are freaking out. Let's say it's an anniversary of D-Day or something like that. If you just go in your midbrain, if you just keep going, then you're going to start reacting in the fear cycle. But if you stop and back up and get curious, you might find the facts, whatever the facts are, and the facts might be horrible. They might not be. Usually, they're not as bad as you think they are. But now your brain's in a different place. You're feeling things differently, right? That makes sense?
Totally.
Yeah, so it sounds like no matter, even if I don't change my behavior, Kobe still did some really great things for himself
Absolutely.
and what he can control.
Despite you,
Yeah,
right?
and that's really what happened,
Yeah.
to be honest, because it did take me like a day to really work through that stuff on my own and see myself, and he still was showing up.
Kobe has a choice. He has a choice. I can victim out here, or I can get curious. And in that curiosity, I can understand my power, what's in my control, what's not in my control, and then you can step into that.
Mhm.
And
But I
that's
also-
a beautiful thing. That right there is interdependency.
Oh, ooh, say that again.
Good job. Kobe.
Interdependency, a little.
He's working on it,
I know. I'm super working on that.
but you're doing good at it.
Well, I was good at it this weekend, so every day's.
I'm just trying to give him experiences so he can grow.
Good job, Ashley.
Yeah.
Way to provide.
Kobe, I'm gonna do you a solid for the whole weekend. But I think so the key piece, not one of the key pieces on this particular instance, then we can move on to the next one, is that by going through that exercise of curiosity, my conclusion was that Ashlyn was not rejecting me. That my conclusion was that I was good enough, and this wasn't about me.
Okay.
Does
yes.
that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
And
So you
I
found some truth.
I did, and again,
It's okay for Ashlyn to be upset.
super okay. And for someone who, I mean, my mom was deeply codependent. My dad was not as bad as my mom, but and then so I learned that, like I learned how to eat, like overachiever, and so it's when I'm trying to stay in interdependence, it was helpful for me to rationally end up at that place where I could appropriately attribute those things. I could see all the factors, basically all the numbers in the equation that got me to the point where I said, this is not about me,
Right.
and this is not me, and that was that was a very important thing because, again, historically, I have always taken anything that Ashlyn did, you know, any way that she responded negatively as me, which is like a super.
Can I tell a story about this?
Yeah.
So I was down in my crawl space, and it's like under my house. It was a horrible space. Like,
Man, sounds cozy.
yeah, where rats work or whatever. I don't know what they do, but we'd store our stuff down there. So I got the world's heaviest bin that we needed to get out for something, and it was so heavy, and I had to squeeze it through this little space. So I had to get up and under the bin and like push it up through this little space. So I was like laying on the dirt in the dark, like
Oh my
pushing
gosh.
this really heavy thing, and my wife was above it, kind of guiding it out of this hole, and so I'm pushing it and it's not going, and I'm just getting crushed by this thing, and I'm like, honey, just pull it through, you know. And I wasn't mad at her. I was just panicking
Under
because
strain.
and she freaked out, and she shut down. She didn't want to talk to me. I think she swore at me, and I thought, holy cow, I was just getting crushed. Like I'm, you know, we
I'm dying.
finally got it out.
Did you give her the adrenaline shot she needed in order to pull that out to save you?
Or did she leave?
No, she left. She like shut down, didn't want to talk to me, and
I love Jenny.
but this was an easy one for me because she way overreacted, and her grandma died that morning. So here I am, like, I could very easily victim out, but if I get curious easily, it's like, hang on here, what's really going on? I can see that, I can understand that. I'm not going to take personally her freaking out about me about dying, right?
Yeah.
Almost dying. But that's an easy example. Her grandma died. That's an easy example for me to back up and be like, I get it, I see it. But we can do this in little tiny things. So when you guys have flare-ups in your relationship, if one or the other of you can get in your wise mind and just stop and say, okay, hang on, what's really going on here? And if you can voice it to each other, you know what, honey, I really want to fight with you right now, or I really want to just like have it out because I'm stressed about work and I'm tired. I haven't slept very well in 2 nights. And to be honest with you, that's really what's going on. It's going to help the other person be like, oh, my curiosity thing's going to kick in, and I'm going to more accept what's going on instead of engage in the drama of it all.
Very cool.
I like that.
So here's something also interesting that has come up this week in relationship to curiosity and how curiosity plays a role in this. As far as like triggers are concerned,
Yeah.
right? Curiosity and triggers. I would get to this place where I would get on my phone and I would search and search and search and search and search and search for some way to find something that was tantalizing. And by the time I had got on my phone, or by the time I had left and gone on a trip, I was already hijacked, and I was way outside of
You're
my
in the
wife's
addiction
mind.
cycle.
I was totally hijacked, right? And so looking back on that, because I had a guy who went through something similar, it's like let's get curious about what took place in your life the day or couple of days leading up to that moment when you were hijacked. Because once you actually got on your phone, or once I got on my phone, I was done. Like I wasn't there, and I had no capacity for curiosity. So that's helped me a ton to evaluate. Being curious on my triggers has helped me to evaluate my surroundings, my environment, my devices, my emotions, all the things that contribute to that point of being hijacked.
Yeah, so it's a tricky thing. You think, you know, the way to work through a trigger is to step toward the trigger, and that first step toward the trigger is curiosity. So, you know, if you're wanting to get on your phone and search and search and search, instead of tell yourself, stop doing this, I shouldn't do this, this is bad. That's running away from the trigger. I shouldn't do this. You stop and say, why am I wanting to do this? Why am I doing this right now? What's going on with me? A woman's running down the street, you know, and not very well, not dressed, let's say. Why do I want to lust after her right now? Why do I want to stay stuck on this right now? Maybe bored, maybe I'm stressed, like what do I need to face so that I can deal with this trigger? As opposed to just say, oh, like it's bad that I'm looking at her, I shouldn't. You're just adding shame to your trigger, where curiosity adds reflection and mindfulness to your trigger.
And it sounds like that you don't necessarily come out of that trigger when you don't implement curiosity. You can actually come out of it and say, okay, I'm getting wise here.
Yes.
By slowing down and really questioning where I'm at and why I'm here.
Without that self-reflection, I don't know the way out. You're gonna be in your limbic system, and your cycles are gonna start and work themselves through. So that really curiosity, mindfulness is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Without getting mindful of what's really going on with you, but curiosity is the way to get there.
That's super interesting. Okay, so can curiosity be applied, well, we already kind of talked about that, right? Like, can I be curious about what triggers you, Ashlyn?
Yeah.
And what's going to be, I don't know if I've actually been that. I mean, we were in conflict over the weekend, but I don't know that I was necessarily curious about what triggered it. But talk about that, if you will. Like, what does that look like being, if I see you triggered, there are lessons. I guess I'm kind of just putting this together myself. If I see you triggered, there are lessons that are there for me. There's like writing on the wall when you're triggered. And if I give myself time to be curious and observe what's taken place for you that's led to a triggered state, then that can really help and serve me in future. But it also facilitates something really interesting, which is the third point of curiosity, which curiosity can lead to empathy.
Connection. And look at this. Some pretty powerful, important stuff. Curiosity leads to relapse prevention. Curiosity helps you deal with conflict, and curiosity helps you. It really is important to empathize with people, to connect. So let's say Ashlyn were triggered, and you didn't really know why. If the shame-based you were there, the defended you, you would tell her how horrible she is for being triggered, or you would shut down or shut off and just avoid it all. But the curious you would step toward her and want to hold space for her and she might not even know what's going on with her, and she needs to explore those things. And when you get curious, you become a part of that process for her. Of tell me more. We've talked about to say more. What's going on? I want to understand. All of that stuff is curiosity in action. So,
I like it.
Yeah, and I go back to knowledge is power, and so the more we can learn from each other and how we are trying to show up different.
Yeah.
I mean, because the reality is most of you guys who are listening, I would say all of you, are trying to do something different.
Yeah.
And trying to take on new behaviors. We're right there with you. We still mess up. It's in different ways now. It's in life and work and parenting. But I know you guys are there with us and dealing with this stuff. And so I think being curious for me, just slows me down.
Yeah.
And in life in general, why am I so bothered about this neighbor? Why am I so bothered about what? And it makes me sit down instead of going to people and telling them about all my stuff.
It's better to slow down than to freak out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can respond rather than react.
Yeah.
And that's really how I want to show up. I don't always do it, but that's what I want.
Right.
I got a guy in group. I want to just share a quick success story because I've got a guy in group who talked about his wife being triggered, and he was like, out of nowhere, I just thought, man, I wonder why she's triggered. I wonder what that's about.
What that's like for her.
And so once he asked the first question, okay, of how, okay, I need to be curious about this. And he said, okay, I wonder what's going on, right? That led to an additional question. What happened today? What is she feeling? Why is she feeling that? And this series of questions that he was asking were really like stepping stones to her shoes. So he could be in her shoes, mm-hmm. and he could see and feel her perspective, which is empathy. And we'll go into more about this at another time, but I see curiosity as a bridge to empathy, and this spans all couples, no matter if they're in addiction or betrayal or not healthy, or it doesn't matter. This is a human thing. Curiosity can lead to understanding where another person is coming from, and it really hit me right between the eyes, and I was like, wow, this is a really incredible moment to understand it.
You know,
How it can do that.
Curiosity killed the cat. You know that?
Yes.
Yeah. So curiosity isn't all good.
Sorry, cat lovers.
But let's talk about what kills curiosity really quick.
Good.
Rigidity kills curiosity. So if you have a rigid construct in your brain about the way things should be, then you're not gonna stop and allow difference and allow change and things like that. Assumption kills curiosity. If you already know what's gone on, then why are you gonna stop and get curious about it? So get off your high horse and don't think you have it all figured out, because that will kill the curiosity. Shame kills curiosity. I don't want to reflect on why I am this way or that way, so I don't want to look at that because that's scary, because I know that I'm not enough. So fear and shame will shut you down and not allow you to be curious.
That is, you totally just described me for most of my
Well,
life.
I think both of us really, those are the things that
Yeah.
kept us in that spin cycle and in a place where neither of us were happy with how we were showing up. So,
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. But curiosity, this has been your word all year, Ashley,
Yeah,
and it's led to a lot of really good things.
it's interesting, Brandon, we found all our old recovery stuff from when we first started 5 years ago.
Like the original binder.
Yeah,
Okay.
he had a binder, we both had a journal, like a notebook.
I wonder if I wrote a lot of that stuff.
Probably did.
Probably did.
And- Yeah, and then my workbook, we found all these things, and I went and I looked in my journal. I didn't read yours, because I don't know if you read
Pretty
mine.
sure you couldn't read
Yeah,
mine,
that's
even
true.
if I did write in it, right?
He wrote, but it was chicken scratch.
Yeah.
It was a different
Exactly.
language.
It looks like it was left-handed, but it wasn't.
Left-handed upside down and written in a mirror.
No, but it's funny because I think these things were new to me, and I didn't have that skill set yet, and I was still getting a lot of education and knowledge. I was really scared, and so to read I read the first 3 pages, just kind of skimmed through, of like, holy crap, I look crazy.
Right.
Like,
right.
it was right after we started, right after
Right.
Kobe. We hadn't even had a full disclosure. It was right after he told me about the second affair, and just the craziness that was going through my head. And one of the coolest parts was, it's how I journaled is how we teach our groups to journal. We came up with the process because we were just doing it.
Yeah.
And so to see the old me show up on this journal feeling crazy one day, there's no hope, this is never going to work, how can I ever forgive him, and the next day say, I had a glimmer of hope today,
Yeah.
and this is why.
Yeah.
I mean, a stranger reading it would be like, she's nuts.
Right.
And I look back on it and think, who was I?
Right.
I'm a different person now, and curiosity has definitely played a huge role in that.
Huge.
To really look at me and to be curious about why we both show up the way we do.
Yeah, I love it.
It's awesome. Well, guys, appreciate you being here. We'd love to have you rate and review the podcast. And if you've heard something here today that you like, that you've enjoyed, love you to share it as well. Thanks for being here.
Have a good day. See you guys.
Bye-bye.